we are reviewing Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. We've been reading it for the past few weeks. It's been a really good read. What have your thoughts been on it, Cam?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, I'm not really a fan of self-help books, but initially when I heard about this book, I thought it was going to be self-help. But I think there's a fine line between what we would call a self-help book and, I don't know, this type of book, like a stoicism sort of book.
Yeah, I think like with this book, I've read self-help books in the past, and I wouldn't. It does fall under the bracket of self-help, but it is completely different to any other self-help book I've read before. Mainly probably because it gives you examples of people today. This gives you like nice stories about people today who have either been through some kind of failure, so where their ego's been involved in the story, and it relates a lot to Stoic philosophies and just good teachings from history, which a lot of the self-help books I've read, they've been a bit more like make money fast, this kind of like get up and sort of be a salesman and go and get it, get out of bed every day and sell yourself you're going to get it today, and that
Yeah,
kind of shit.
yeah. It's like the normal self-help books are about feeding the ego. So this
Yeah, 100%.
complete opposite is saying actually fuck your ego off.
But at the start of the book, he does say society's been conditioned like to think that having an ego is what brings success, because we look at a lot of people who are successful and they have egos. And like one thing that really stood out to me, I think it's near the start of the book, where he says that people with egos have, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's along the lines of people with egos have confidence that hasn't been earned, but people without an ego have a certain type of confidence that's been earned.
Yeah,
I'll try
it,
to find it.
yeah.
Quote.
I know what which part you mean. I don't think I highlighted it. But I remember when that bit was up, and I guess like the overall um message in there is do stuff to please you from within and not from sort of external factors. And I guess that's well what you were saying about here's the quote, a different one, but you were talking about it. Our cultural values almost try and make us dependent on validation, entitled, and ruled by our emotions. For a generation, parents and teachers have focused on building up everyone's self-esteem. So it didn't really go too in depth in terms of societal factors, um, apart from little references to cultural or slight references to society throughout the book. Um,
Then that quote, I highlighted that quote too. And one thing that maybe like stand out to me is like, do you know, you hear about like kids getting like taking a participation trophy and things like that. Like it's just boosts children's self-esteem from a young age to make them feel like they deserve to be in position when they get older. They then think, "Oh, I deserve to be in this position." When they don't really, like, you have to work and prove yourself to be able to get in those kind of positions.
yeah, well, it breeds validation. It um, like requires validation. It makes people require validation to get through life. So that's where we're at today because you get these, and it's more and more frequent now. You're getting these. What did you call it? A trophy for
A participation trophy.
that's it, participation trophy. So it just means everyone's entitled to some reward or some sort of gain that they, even though they're not doing anything, means they should be rewarded just for showing up for example.
Yeah. Whereas in the book as well, he tells a story. I can't remember the name of the person told the story about. But he was in the military and worked and just did his job. Took like I think he was a general. He took them to battle, but he didn't do it to get any recognition, and he never really got the recognition he deserved. But he just thought, I just need to go here because this is my duty. This is what I need to do. And he got it done and stayed quiet about it. Didn't make a big fuss, which is a good. But that's how you should approach things in life. Like, just give it your. Like he says in the book as well. Just do your best and be the best person you can be, and don't worry about anything else. If you know deep down you've done that, then that's a job well done. Like, you can say yourself well done. You don't need anybody else to say well done for doing it, because you've told yourself you've done your best, and there's nothing else can sort of trump what you're telling yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because like, throughout the whole book, it just goes to show that ego is seeking validation and just doing stuff for the sort of external factors rather than within doesn't mean happiness. Happiness, but everyone seems to think it means happiness, and everyone it's sort of I don't is it sort of like a disease. It's not a disease, but it's just a bad trait. It's a negative trait. Um, but if you cut that out, which is hard, definitely in the Western world. I can only speak for the Western world. It's hard to cut that out with the way everything's set up. But I can see how there's ultimate happiness if you disconnect from external factors and do things which satisfy you from within. And I guess this whole idea of self esteem, self confidence, there's two ways of looking at it. There's being self confident, there's being seen as self confident, which is again attached to ego, but there's like truly being confident from within. And I think there is a very fine line, but it is a very important to differentiate between the two because so many. This book's made me realize that so many things account for ego.
Yeah, and like I've said on the pod before, like when I got into Stoicism, like the main factor about the whole philosophy was the letting go of the stuff you can't control, and the things you can't control, and it sort of drills into like your ego from what he's saying in the book is like you can't control what other people's opinions are about you. You can't control what if your boss says well done for doing a piece of work, you can't control that. So it's like that goes nothing to you've done the piece of work, you've done it to the best of your ability. That's all you need to do. That's your job done.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And it's since I've like sort of taken that on board in my own head, like I feel a lot more like just more content with myself than I was before, like sort of seeking validation, seeking job titles, seeking promotions. Like none of that really at the end of the day doesn't really care. I don't really care about that anymore. Just get my job done to the best of my ability.
Yeah, I think we read this book at a very good time because we've already identified previously that we did need to let go of the egos, and that's in obviously throughout all of our life with jobs, careers, job titles, like you've said, and then on top of that, like seeking validation of just I don't know being out and about, going out for a drink. In every like minute detail, you're seeking validation from other people, but letting go of that is like a massive weight lifted off your shoulders, and then suddenly you just feel like a rush of freedom from within.
Yeah, like it is 100% freeing. It frees the mind to focus on things that actually matter.
Yeah, 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 exactly, yeah.
Which I think he says in the book as well. Like I don't know if he says in the book or I've heard it on the podcast. But there's this thing about time. Is this mentioned in the book? And how times. No, sorry, it was Bart in our podcast yesterday. He said that money is you can make a billion, lose a billion, and make a billion again.
Oh yeah.
Time is something that you're never going to get back. So why waste your time and energy caring about what other people think about you, trying to get validation from other people, than being content with yourself and knowing that you've done the best of your ability.
Yeah, on something that you've wanted to work towards, because a lot of people seem to do stuff that they're not actually happy doing, but because they're seeking validation from others. So they'll do something that makes someone else happy for them and for themselves, and it would just sort of, it's a bit of a, it's sort of like a negative feed. Is it a negative feedback loop where you're doing something you're not happy with because you get a thrill off someone else being happy about you, and then you just keep going and doing more.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't. I don't know what it's called, but it also reminds me of like, and he does mention this in the book when he talks about the 2008 crash and how people were over leveraged, like buying houses they couldn't afford, buying cars they can't afford, and when the 2008 crash came and a lot of that got taken away from people, it doesn't take long to build yourself back up to that stage. But a lot of people built themselves back up to that stage and then fell back into the same trap they were in before 2008. Now you're looking at society now, we're on the brink of a recession, of a financial crash. And you look around and you see a lot of people are still over leveraging.
Yeah, people aren't learning.
Yeah, people aren't learning from past mistakes. Even people aren't learning from previous generations. When there's lessons to be learned there.
It could even be the same generation that are doing the exact same thing.
Mm. Yeah, the same people do the exact same thing, or
Yeah.
the next generation will just copy.
Yeah. What one thing in the book which I found super important, and I reflected on it a bit, was the power of being a student is not just that it is an extended period of instruction, it also places the ego and ambition in someone else's hands. A true student is like a sponge, absorbing what goes on around him, filtering it, latching on to what he can hold. A student is self critical and self motivated, always trying to improve his understanding so that he can move on to the next topic, the next challenge. A real student is also his own teacher and his own critic. There is no room for ego there. So, but the first part of that is allowing people to teach you is, I think, a massive step in letting go of your ego. But at the same time, I think it is difficult in the sense that you need to find the correct teacher.
Mm. But I think you can learn something from anybody and everybody. Even if that teacher is not very good, there's still some wisdom or some experience that they've had that you haven't had, which you can learn from. So I think there's knowledge and wisdom inside everybody, anybody you talk to.
Yeah, it's about, I guess it's about you being smart from looking at the people and identifying what their experience are that they've been through, and sort of utilizing that relationship in that way.
Yeah, and I think there's being a student. Like I'm a firm believer that you should be a student like all your life. Like you should always be open to learning new things until the day you die, because I feel like that's what keeps me going anyway. Like learning new shit, doing new shit.
Well, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah. But I forgot what my point was now. Oh yeah, like you. Also, the second. This is like relating into the second part of what you're saying, that a student is a student of themselves. So you could speak to somebody and be a student of that person by taking a bit of their knowledge, but you're also a student of yourself. So you'll look at your past experiences, his experiences, bring them together, and then come up with an idea or potentially an answer to something that you're looking for within yourself. You might not have got the direct answer from the person you're talking to, but you might be able to merge what he said with your experience and come up with something.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of well, for example, what we're doing on the podcast is speaking to all of these guests, and we are being like a sponge, like it's the same, because we're listening to people's theories and we're listening to people's opinions and what they think about different things in the world. They might have different opinions to each other that we're speaking to. They might have different opinions to us, but they're still gonna. For example, if we speak to someone who tells us something that we don't agree with, it might not change our opinion on that exact subject, but there might be another subject down the line which will be like, oh, this is what X person was about, and it will benefit us in another part of life. We can't look at everything that we're learning from person A as right, we're learning that, so it's relevant, and I need to understand it now. You might not understand it now. There's shit that I've learned. There's stuff that I've learned years ago which I didn't even know I had learned until recently when I had needed it. And after reflection, you look back and you're like, oh shit, that stuff was already there in my mind.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize.
There's a lot of stuff like Dad used to tell us when we was kids, and he used to like tell us all sorts. But at the time, like you don't care, like you just want to go out and hang around with your friends. Like you don't like you're just not switched on to it. But I remember one thing he said. He goes, one day like a switch will go in your head, and he goes, the stuff I'm telling you will come back to you. And that switch went for me, and I was like, shit, like he was right at the time. And some of the stuff he taught me then, like, comes into play now. But that's because I've been through, like, say, from 18 to 25, like 7 years worth of life experience for then his teachings to sort of, all right, like, that's why he said that, this is why he said that. So like, it's also your experience. So you might learn something today that you're not ready for right now. But in 5-10 years' time, after you've had that experience, it will fit in then. Then you can look further into it and sort of develop it in your own way. It's like if someone was teaching you about how to raise a child now, like you can't really comprehend it because you've not got a child.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't do the practical of the learning.
Yeah, and you don't know what it's actually like to raise a child. Like you don't know what the difficulties are. You don't know anything about it really.
Yeah. I guess it's similar to well, yeah, that so it's like if you're learning to drive but you don't actually do a driving lesson, you just keep doing your theory, and then one day you jump into a car. You're not gonna fully know how to operate the car, but you're gonna have a better idea than someone who hasn't been sat doing the theory for the last 2 years. Or
Yeah, I think there's another quote. It's on about the learning as well. It's like you can't learn if you think you already know. You will not find the answers if you are too. Not this word. If you are too conceited and self-assured to ask the questions. You cannot
So
get better if you are convinced you are the best. So,
find that funny that you were talking about you not knowing something, and then you didn't even know the next word.
I highlighted as well. It just so like the last bit of that phrase is you cannot get better if you are convinced you are the best. So in my head, like I think I've said to you loads of times, like I'm like quite critical of myself. Like I want to be the best person I can be, but I know I'm never going to be the best person I can be because that's never going to happen.
Yeah, that person does not exist.
Yeah, it's never going to exist.
And that's because you don't have the ego. Like the ego basically is saying, "I'm there." And you're putting yourself on a pedestal. Yeah, and saying you're there. But letting go of the ego is basically saying, "I don't want to stand up there because I don't feel, but within I don't feel right stood there." Like so someone could say to you, "Stand up there and just say these words," and everyone will like think that you've made it. Everyone out who's listening to you there, if you just say these words and stand there, there will be no question, nothing. They'll all think you are the man. You know everything about this. A lot of people will be like, "Oh shit, man, yeah, let's do it. Let's go." Read out the shit. I guess that's what presidents and prime ministers do. But there'll be that in the back of your head. There'll be that feeling of I don't deserve to stand here. I don't actually know. Like you have that guilt. No, I don't even call it guilt. It would just be you feel fake doing it, and that's what all these people have who spend. Yeah, they make £1,000 a month, and then they buy £200 trainers, £100 t-shirt. They buy I don't know whatever else. They spend all of the money that they've just earned to make themselves look like they earn more money.
Yeah.
To seek validation, but in the back of their mind, they know that this isn't right. This isn't who I am. I'm trying to just put a mask on, and I guess that must be another reason why sort of mental health and depression and anxiety is so high because people are living in these fake personas.
Mm. Like I've had people like say to me in the past, like, "Oh, this person's doing so and so." Like they put it on Instagram doing this, doing that, and I was like, I thought about this. Like I think I must have come up with this idea when I was for about 24, 25. That it's like building a house. Yeah. So you look at a house and this is what I'll see Instagram like. You look at a house and it looks all beautiful, like from the outside, all really nice. But then you go inside and it's a fucking shit show. But because you're just looking at it from the outside, you're seeing like this beautiful house, but then you walk in and the fucking ceiling's falling down, the foundations are all.
But it's up to your imagination what's going to be inside there.
Yeah, but because you're seeing it from the outside, you're thinking everything's perfect, going to be perfect inside because the outside looks so nice.
It's a con.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, no one's gonna. That's the thing. Like I'm in a relationship, and I see people in relationships, and they're on Instagram, and they seem to be having these fucking wild relationships, which look better than a fucking movie from Instagram. And then a couple of months later, they'll be broken up. I don't really post much on my Instagram of my personal life. I post on my photography page at Masculine Media, check it out. And I post events, you know, like if I don't know, I think the last post on my Instagram was a football night out that I went on with the people I play football with. Stuff like that I like posting. But then I don't really post much of my relationship, and I've been in my relationship for 11 years. I'd say we're quite solid. But you see these other people who, from looking at Instagram, they look like they're more solid than my relationship. Like they make me feel like, oh, they're in a much solid relationship. But then they break up two months down the line. This isn't something I see now. This is something I've identified in the past. Like I'm not like this now, but it's just a facade. It's just a con. You're just marketing yourself in a deceiving way.
Yeah, like I think Instagram is just all about ego. Like it's just people like putting on a persona or falsifying their life.
I think if not ego, Instagram can be used for goodness because I like seeing what the fuck people are up to. I like seeing if someone's gone to the zoo to see monkeys.
Mm.
And the next time I see that person, I'm like, "How was the zoo?" Well, maybe not the zoo, but something else.
Yeah,
that's the part of it I like. But the other stuff, like fucking new trainers, me and my I don't know girlfriend going to Dubai with fucking first class tickets, the showboating.
Yeah, showboating. Yeah, that's what I don't like about it.
But then no one's gonna post like, "Oh shit, I've just had an argument with my girlfriend."
Yeah, that's what. No one's gonna show like the real hardcore shit.
Start an Instagram where you show your good and bad side of your life.
I think there's a social media app that notifies you when to take a picture. So and then post it. So you take a picture. I think I saw it on Lou later. So it'll just notify you randomly throughout the day. And you got to take a picture of what you're doing there and then and post it.
So my whole feed would just be me sat in this chair in front of my computer. the odd occasion it might get me when I'm going to the shop. um, so like going back to the book, but not to the specifics. Did you? What did you find positive about the book, and what did you find negative about the book? Or just start with the negatives because we're going to discuss the positives throughout this whole thing.
Um, Negatives. I feel like some bits, and I didn't realize it as much when I was reading it. I think it's because I had breaks in between reading it. But when I've gone back through my highlighted, I've noticed some bits were repeated again and again, which I don't mind because it sort of drills it in a bit more. But I don't think there's too much negative about the book. I rated it 5 on Amazon.
Oh, you've rated it?
Yeah.
All right, I was going to rate it after this.
Oh.
The hard book review.
You know, when it comes up at the end,
Yeah.
that's the first time I've ever given a book a 5 on the book club.
Oh,
I
right.
was supposed to do the book reviews at the end of the pod, but
I like rating them on Goodreads, but to be fair, if we're going to rate a book anything less than 2 stars, I probably wouldn't have even finished the book.
yeah, you won't finish it.
No,
what are your negatives?
No, I thought the book was good. Yeah, I didn't really notice that they repeated it because it was all on just one subject on the ego. So I guess he was just using his examples and then reiterating the ego. One thing I'm not. This isn't a negative. This is something I wanted, but you can't call it a negative if there's something missing that you wanted in the book because that's obviously not the right. I've not chosen the right book. That means, but I would like to find a book that goes more into the psychology around ego. He didn't really go too much into the psychology, rather than kept it quite a bit at face value in terms of this is what people do, this is how they show this is how they act, this is what it does to them, this is what it does to them, and the underlying message is this is all due to ego, and this is what can happen if you detach from ego. So I like that he was comparing case studies on people that do have bad egos with people who have detached themselves from egos and showed the difference in outcome. Yeah, but I guess the next book then I guess that means it's a good thing because it's introduced me to something I know I'm interested in. So the next book I want to read is where they go more in depth in the actual psychology of ego.
I guess when you start looking to the psychology of it, you start looking to like narcissistic behaviors and things like that because narcissists, they're massive egos because that's the whole, like, that is what a narcissist is. Like, basically what he's defining as a big ego is essentially a narcissist. But there's things in here, like, I went into the book thinking, I don't think I have like a massive ego. But then reading it, like, there are certain things where I can improve in my daily life. Like, for example, I'd say like I'm a student when it comes to learning in life, but then if I'm good at something, I know like if I know I'm good at something, like I will. Someone tries to tell me what to do, or tells me their way of doing it, I will shut off and not listen to them.
Yeah. Which I guess is that the next stage for you. So I mean that brings me to this point, right? Is what I was thinking. What you just said just triggered what I was thinking when I was reading the book at a certain point. Is I still have ego there, like I 100% still have it there, but not what it used to be or not what it could be, which is a good thing. And that's why I said earlier that I think this is a perfect time that I read the book, and I think it's a perfect time that we both read the book. But when I was reading it, I was thinking, if I read this book like 10 years ago when I was 16, sorry, and that's sort of where your ego's like building because you're old enough, your peers are all getting to that age where you start showing off. And I was thinking, some people sort of go up and then they just sort of plateau at that level, or their ego just keeps increasing depending on what cards they dealt through life, I guess. Do you think it'll be harder for them people to pick up this book and read it because their ego might be too far gone? you think there's an optimal time that this book can be beneficial to you?
Yeah, I think the optimal time is like mid to late 20s. Like, I think any kind of changes in your, I don't know because I'm not older, but from what I can see from people around me, is that it's easier to change your way of living your life if you're in your mid late 20s, early 30s than it would be if you're 50 to 60. Because you've lived so much of your life living it a certain way. It's just, I think it'd be a lot harder to sort of, it's not impossible, but it'd be a lot harder to rein in, and you need to want to do it.
Yeah, I guess I was looking at it from a point of view of, well, yeah, I guess with age, but it depends on.
And I think when you're 16, I feel like you need to go through a phase where, like in this context, you have the ego to be able to understand what it does.
Yeah, so my point was at 16, my ego was growing, and then it just kept growing and growing and growing. And then I guess it sort of plateaued out and then sort of started coming down a little bit. But I know there's other people who, when they're 16, their ego's growing and growing and growing, and it doesn't really plateau or it just keeps steadily increasing. And then you get 10 years ahead, and where mine might have gone like that and then sort of down there, someone else's kept going up. So do you think that other 26-year-old whose egos kept growing and they kept doing things just to feed their ego, kept trying to get their job promotion, kept buying brand new shoes?
Yeah, but I
It's
think
harder for them to read it.
I think when their ego's there, it is. But then he says in the book, the bigger the ego, the harder the fall. So when the time comes where he goes through, because you're not going to be dealt good cards all your life. You might have been dealt good cards from 16 to 30, and then after 30, you might get fucking 5 years worth of shit hands. And that person who's up there for 14 years, 15 years, suddenly just drops straight down. It's when they're down, or maybe built themselves back up a little bit, they need to pick this book up and read it. Because then they can understand where they've gone, where they went wrong from 15, 16 to 30.
Yeah.
So I guess there's no right or wrong time to read the book. It's just when it's time, like age-wise, age is just a number in it at the end of the day. It's just when the time's right for the individual.
Yeah, based on, I guess, because it's a topical book, so it's a book about ego. It's when that person identifies, when the reader can identify with what ego actually is, then it's like, okay, then you can, I guess, yeah, it's a self-help book, isn't it? So it's when people want to make a change, and just by buying the fucking book or picking the book up anyway means you want to make a change.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the time it happens when people want to make a change when they're struggling with something. Like when they don't feel content with themselves, then they start reading and start trying to learn. So it just depends on when that happens in your life.
Yeah. He's got the other books as well, on the obstacles in the way,
Obstacle is the way.
and then he's got another one.
Yeah.
It's a book trilogies, aren't they? So you're meant to read them in order.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that we could fit another Ryan Holiday book in when towards the back end of the year.
Yeah, we can read the obstacle is the way.
Is there a certain order you need to read them? I don't think so. I think Obstacle is the Way is his first one, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that was before this one.
I think there is a second book though. Stillness is the Key.
Oh, that's it. Stillness is the key. What were you saying pre-call about tattoos? Ryan Holiday's tattoos.
Oh yeah. So he's got one on this arm that says "Ego is the enemy," and he's got another one. Let me just Google it. You can just get them up, Sharon.
Yeah, the obstacle is the way. Ego is the enemy.
So he says he looks at them every day, and it reminds him. And I think this book, it's a book I will definitely read again.
Yeah. I think as we develop through life, we will pick it back up and read it like at certain points. But I guess the fact that we've read it at this point it'll stick with us. I guess that's like that with any book, though, right? It will stick with you.
Yeah, definitely.
I liked when he compared egoism to alcoholism.
Oh yeah, where he says
I've got it here.
about sobriety.
Yeah, the egotist does not stumble about knocking things off his desk. He does not stammer or drool. No, instead he becomes more and more arrogant. And some people, not knowing what is underneath such an attitude, mistake his arrogance for a sense of power and self-confidence. So people with the egos could come across as deceiving. And I guess that's where like narcissism's born from, right? Because having the ego, you sort of you cling on to it. It's like being an alcoholic. You find the easiest and best ways to feed your habit of alcohol. Being an egotist, you find the best ways to feed the ego, and that's by using other people for self-fulfillment and for validation and stuff like that. So they come up with these cunning and deceiving ways to gain control of people, or to get validation, or to always be the right ones and always be at the top of the smartest person in the room and all that shit.
Yeah, to always be perceived as the best. They always find a way to feed that.
Yeah. So I like that he compared it to alcoholism, because it is sort of a disease in that way. And I always thought ego was a good thing if you channeled it right. That's what I go into this book thinking was a correct thing, but this book's made me realize that that's actually wrong. Like the actual, that's to say ego's good and healthy if you channel it right is basically coming up with this book made me realize that it's coming up with an excuse on how to keep hold of it rather than just letting it go completely.
Yeah, I think it's more of a
habit.
No, it's more of a balancing act. Sort of, you don't want to be not self-confident at all, but then you don't want to be arrogant. So it's somewhere in the middle. One sec, I've highlighted something. Just try and find it.
Yeah, like what you're saying with your scale is the top of it would be narcissism, and then the bottom of it would be nihilism, right? Because if you don't give a rat's ass about anything, then you'll just sink into a deep hole of nihilism where nothing means anything because you don't mean anything.
Yeah. Like, you need to be in the middle of it.
Yeah, because you drop off on both ends.
Yeah. Says courage. Now, this is an example. Courage, for instance, lies between cowardice on one end and recklessness on the other end.
That's a good quote.
Yeah. So you can have courage, but then you also see how people who are seen as courageous can also be considered reckless. And then you've got cowardice. So it's all about the balance. And when I read like more and more into like philosophies and self-help kind of thing, a lot of it boils down to yin and yang and balance.
Yeah, finding it from the center of within, because even like there's quite a few things early on in the book that I was like, oh shit. I guess that's why I thought I had an ego, because I thought I had let go of my ego at some point. I knew it was always kind of still there, because it's not something tomorrow I'm going to my ego.
Something you need to work on, and it's something you got to work on forever.
You got to practice, and I think it's at the book somewhere he says saying shit like "fake it till you make it," which I've said like shitload, like a lot, is one of the worst things you can do to yourself because that's what it is. That's what ego is. It's just faking rather than just being honest and saying. I guess that's what it is, right? It's just being honest and true to yourself, and that's where, like you've said, to build the courage. For example, saying "fake it till you make it" is bad because you're lying. So you're being dishonest to yourself and you're being dishonest to the party that you're speaking to. But if you fucking work hard at something, say for example, I'm building a website and I could say to the client, yeah, I know how to build a website, I can do all this, I can do all that, but I don't know. That's faking it till I make it. Or saying to a client, yes, I can build a website. I've not done this before, so give me a bit longer on it. But I'm gonna like do what I can. So you take that extra time and use it to make the best fucking website that you can possibly make, and put all your effort into and everything you can into making something that you yourself are proud of, and then saying to the client, I've done this." Um, if you fake it till you make it, the quality of the work's not going to be as good as you when you're being brutally honest, because you're already going onto the website on the back foot like shit. It's not going to be good enough. It's not going to be good enough. And then it's just like the negative energy that you're producing there is it's not going to be good enough. And then even when you go and present it to the client, you're in the back of your head, you're going to be like, oh, it's not that good. And then it's going to come across to the client that it's not that good just because of the energy you're doing. But whereas if you put all your effort into making it the best thing that you possibly can, already lowered the expectations anyway, you'll go, they'll be even happier with you. And whether or not like they're overall happy with the work, like that whole process has been beneficial for you for the next one.
Yeah, it's like as well, like how your ego, how you handle failure when you like. 'Cause obviously, he's got his part in the book about failure. Um, I forgot my point.
You're a failure.
Yeah, that was it. Um, handling failure, it all boils down to you being responsible for and owning your actions. And I notice a lot of people these days like will blame their position on other people and not accept any responsibility for themselves. And I think it links back into being a student as well, because your failures is what teaches you a lesson. So you need to own them failures and not just shift the blame onto somebody else or something else. You need to say like, "Shit, I could have done better here. I hold my hands up. I fucked up."
Yeah. And that's what builds your resilience. If you just be like, if you see a scapegoat and you can just pass it on to that scapegoat, then you're just going to keep scapegoating through every single fucking obstacle that comes in your way. I guess he might talk about that in his other book.
Yeah, I guess so. But he says, what does he say? In the end, the only way you can appreciate your progress is to stand on the edge of the hole you dug.
Oh yeah, he says that towards the end, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Mm.
I've that like when I read that, I was like, fucking hell.
But he says something after that as well, which I thought was it something about the marks being made trying to get out of the hole?
It says, yeah. So I highlighted a bit more. So he goes, in the end, the only way you can appreciate your progress is to stand on the edge of the hole you dug for yourself. Look down inside it and smile fondly at the bloody claw prints that mark the journey up the walls.
I like that when he said that
Yeah.
because you want to be proud. Like it's so hard to comprehend, but you want to be proud of your failures. You
Yeah.
want to be proud to like, and it is hard to comprehend. But when you can actually realize why it's good to be proud of a failure, then I guess that's when you've got true like happiness.
Yeah. Just own your failures and learn from it. Like, it doesn't matter at all what other people think about your failure.
Mm.
As long as you've got something out of that lesson, that's all that matters.
Yeah. And well, blaming other people is the worst way out. That's an excuse is a bad way out, putting the blame onto someone else is a even worse way out. But even I'm gonna go just. I guess this sort of I can only relate it to my work life really, but if something goes wrong with me being self-employed at work, I don't like giving an excuse. I have to come up with a solution, or else
Yeah,
what's the point of
that's
me?
how I like approach things. If I've made a mistake or if I've done something wrong, and I know I have, then I'll go explain what I've done wrong and then finish off with a solution.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
But
yeah.
like, you start with a negative and end on a nice positive. Like,
Yeah,
thought a solution, blah blah. I'm gonna do this from now on.
and I think some people get it a bit mixed up though, where they're like, "Shit, okay, let's not put an excuse out there," and that means don't give them reasoning for the error. But I think giving reasoning for the error is accepting the failure,
Yeah,
saying, "Well, this is why it went wrong." So I don't know. I like doing it to show that I've identified what's gone wrong,
yeah.
located the issue. It's not like, "Fuck, what, I don't know what's going on. It's fucked up, but this is how I can
I think
fix it."
that looks even worse. Like to a client.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But some people do that even though they know what the issue is. They'll be
Yeah.
like, "Oh shit, fucking hell, what's going on? What, play dumb? What's going on?" I know how to fix it, but what's going on? Yeah,
Yeah, I think the book. All in all, I rate it a 5. Like, I think it's really good. Maybe because of the timing as well of reading
yeah.
it. Like, it's opened my eyes a lot and it's given me a lot to think about.
So I would give it a 5 out of 5. Um, it was easy to read.
Yeah, and it was easy to read as well. So he's kept it like open to all audiences. If you're ready for it, give it a read.
Give it a read. We'll leave the link or we'll leave the link to it in our bio if you don't mind supporting the channel. Um, please, it's an affiliate link, so purchase it through that, and then we can continue to give you this good podcast.
And like and subscribe if you already haven't.
So there was this quote, small one, but I thought it was quite powerful. Um, Throughout this book, I was trying to figure out ways. Well, throughout the book, what happened was, I'll tell you because I think we spoke about it midway through the book, that we books like this, self-help books, I always think of other people, like, oh, this sounds like this guy, this sounds like this guy. So I thought, let me try and not do that and try and identify more within myself and how I can apply it to myself,
Yeah.
what resonates with me. And then, like, as I was thinking that, and I went back into the book, I read this quote: "Never gives reasons for what you think or do until you must. Maybe after a while, a better reason will pop into your head." And I don't really know. I can't really remember how he tied it into the ego, but it made me think, like, I guess it goes to the ego that this isn't really something I'm thinking of in terms of work life, but in terms of my personal life, something goes wrong or there's a problem, I'm always trying to be quick to amend whatever the problem is, no matter if it's a problem for myself or a problem with something else. Whereas I have sort of identified that slowing, I guess it's with our slow living theme. If you slow down and look at the problem, you'll be able to do it better. It might take longer, it might not be as efficient, but you'll do a better job. And I think that can be applied throughout life.
It's even like sometimes when you get something that initially you feel emotional about, you don't want to respond to it in an emotional way. So you want to pull back away from it, let it sit on it for a little bit, and then approach the situation. Because then you'll handle the situation a lot better than you would if you handle it there and then when emotions are high.
Yeah, it's having the, I guess, is it resilience to, it's having the ability to weigh up the pros and cons before you go into a response. But I guess majority of people will look at the negatives first. If it's a negative situation, you'll be drawn straight to the negative implication of it because the positives might not be that positive. But if you need to think a little bit deeper to actually pull out what's a positive or what's a remedy, rather than multiplying the negativity of it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes your emotion can cloud how you'd actually deal with it on a if your emotion wasn't involved, like you would deal with it in a more in a way where your personality like shines through a bit more, like your day to day personality, not your emotional. Like anything can happen when you're emotional. Yeah. So taking a step back just gives you time to like calm down and reevaluate it with a clear head. Like with even just taking out the negatives out of it, you're just there with a clear head and you can reevaluate the whole situation.
Yeah, and I guess like trying to tie it into the ego side of things. If there's a problem that arises somewhere and there's a group of people, and you rush into a brass decision to try and resolve it, you won't. You would want to be alpha to come up with the solution, and that would mean either stepping on or not listening to the people that are also trying to help the situation. And that could even be in not even just a group art, even just in the disputes between two people. You having the bigger ego would want to. I don't know what did he say, like have the last word or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, the person with the bigger ego would be more on the offensive side. Whereas if you've taken that time away and put your emotions to one side, you can go there with a level head and be level headed, not offensive, not defensive, and just go and handle the situation how it should be handled.
Yeah, and work towards the best possible outcome. And that's the best possible outcome for the situation, not the best possible outcome for you, for how you will, or you walk away. Oh, everyone knows I won that or whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who won it. Like, as long as the situation's resolved.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He talks about that in the book with a scenario. I don't know if you recall which one it was. The person without the ego was doing the most, but was not getting any recognition for it.
Yeah, I think does that fall in line with the story I was talking about before? I can't remember the name.
I don't know if there was two different ones. I don't know. I don't know. I remember which one you were talking about before. But,
Yeah, another thing I just want to bring up as well. We spoke quite a bit on the pre-call. Was Malcolm X's story.
oh yeah. Oh
That
shit.
was
Yeah.
really good. I didn't know he was he went to prison and stuff,
No,
and he was a drug dealer and armed robber and all
I don't
this.
really know much on Malcolm X to be honest.
Yeah, nor do I really.
But
But
that's
I just knew him as like I always thought of him as just
political figure.
yeah, political figure, and I thought he was like an academic.
Mm. Yeah, that's what I thought. He was an academic. I guess because the glasses and stuff.
Yeah, but I didn't know. So for those who don't know, he was used to be a bit of a gangster. So he used to be like a drug dealer. I think he was a pimp at one point, armed armed robber, and he got arrested, put in prison. How many years did he get put in prison for?
It initially said 10 years, but then the book was talking about 7 years. So I don't know if it's seven
He might have
years.
got let out early.
Yeah.
So he got sent to prison for 10 years, and he literally just read every book under the sun whilst he was in prison, on philosophy, history.
He also got a dictionary and writ out every single word and the definition of it, so his vocab increased. And he was learning about words which he had never even heard of, like he never even knew existed.
I think we said at the start as well, like when I was reading, I was thinking if I went to prison, I would just read shitloads of books.
There's two things that I would do if I was in prison, is like just do gym, exercise every day, and then the other half of the day is just read,
Yeah, Jim and read.
just read and write.
As well, towards the end, we're talking about time, like using your time. He talks about dead time and alive time.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I thought that was like quite interesting because there's always loads of things that you do, and without me realizing it, like I've tried to fill in some dead time with something to make it alive. So like when I take my Kindle with me when I'm on the train and stuff like that, like I'm reading. Whereas usually I'd just be sat there listening to music or watching a football podcast or something on the tube. So it's like filling in. It's just finding ways to fill in where what would be considered dead time, just make them alive by doing something positive.
Yeah, and even I think I don't really travel the same way you do, so I don't really do that. But it's even I don't know. Would you say this is like instead of watching something shitty on TV like Family Guy, put something like a documentary on?
Yeah, I guess like you're learning something, you're picking up something from it.
Yeah, but like the problem is though, I don't know. I don't even know if this is a problem, but I want to watch a documentary, and I know the feeling of. I don't really have this feeling anymore. I would say I used to have this feeling of should I really be watching this or should I put something a bit more educational on? Have that little bit of anxiety of it. But if you can't be bothered and you don't want to do it, then how would someone do it? Like, there's that feeling, right, where you can't be bothered, you don't want to do it, but you feel like you need to do it. How
Yeah,
does like how do you overcome that feeling?
that's a difficult one, but I think it comes down to that discipline, doesn't it?
Habit.
Yeah, it's like when I've taken a long period of time off the gym, and then I have to go back in again early morning. Like, I can't be I can't be asked because I've got used to lying in. But when you get into the habit, like now it's just second nature. I just wake up and go.
Yeah, so like with the consuming information, it is now instilled in me that if I've got dead time, then that might be mean time relaxing and doing something a bit relaxing. I'll still pull up an information video on YouTube or whack a documentary on or listen to a podcast on a certain topic which is interesting. But I don't know what I'm trying to say properly. But there was like a transitional period between me not wanting to, that couldn't be bothered doing that, but knowing that I do want to I would like to, but I can't be bothered. So I just put for like a cartoon or whatever, some dumb humor or something. And then there was a transitional point where now I can't be bothered watching the dumb humor stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I think like once you start just doing it a little bit here, a little bit there, then it starts just taking over, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I guess we got fundamentally we've got this channel which we want to keep bouncing ideas off each other, so we got to keep our knowledge tank
Yeah.
filled up. And
Sometimes it can be hard though. Like I think we spoke after the call yesterday, or it might have been before. Sometimes like when I want to break from that, and I think you can't use all your time as a lifetime because it's just too much.
burnout.
So if I want to break from it, like I said, I'll watch football or I'll watch like a football podcast or something, some kind of comedy, stand up comedy or something, like to sort of break up that learning. And then I think stand up comedy is really good because it's very chilled, but you feel like that you have to use your brain to figure shit out. And the more you know about the world and the more you know about history, the more you'll sort of find stand-up comedians funnier. Well, depending on the comedian, obviously.
Yeah. The more you can relate to the joke, the more you can understand the joke
Yeah,
because it's well formulated. The jokes.
yeah, because comedians are the clever people.
Yeah. Who's your favorite comedian?
Going to be obvious, Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle. Oh,
Yeah, I think he's just a beast, man.
yeah, he is. He's fucking. Like, I was watching some old school stand up from him, and he was a little fucking skinny guy, and now he's a tank.
Have you watched him on? Do you know? Have you seen the Chappelle show?
Yeah. That's where he's skinny on there.
You know that crackhead guy he plays? I
Yeah.
can't remember his name. Have you seen him on Fear Factor?
What, that character goes on to Fear Factor?
Yeah, it just looks like a sketch.
Oh, right, no, I've not seen it.
It's more funny.
I'll watch it now tonight.
Yeah. All right. We should call it now.
Yep. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Cheers, guys. See you on the next book club. It's The Fourth Turning. Who wrote it?
What?
Who wrote The Fourth Turning?
The Fourth Turning by William Strauss and Neil Howe.
I think this is actually, I think, is a perfect time to read this as well, because it seems like we're coming to an end of a cycle. So,
well, the subtitle for the book is "What the Cycles of History Tell Us About America's Next
Rendezvous.
Is it?
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, rendezvous.
Shit. I've never.
Have you not heard that word rendezvous before?
Yeah, I've heard it like spoken. I've never seen it.
Oh. To be fair, I've never seen it spelled. I just googled it, and it, you know, and it tells you the pronunciation thing underneath.
Rendezvous.
Yeah.
I think it's French.
Yeah,
Sounds like it.
So yeah, start that one again. So the subtitle for the show. What the cycles of history tell us about America's next rendezvous with destiny. I think it's going to be a good book, this one.
Yeah, I think it'd be good.
So check it out. I'll leave a link to that in the description below as well if you want to read it with us. And if you want to be a guest on the book club, then send us an email.
Aaron at Alt-ernative. No, what's the...
Or the team.
The team.
The team at alt-ernative.co.uk.
Yeah, let us know. Have you been checking that mailbox?
Nope. I checked it about a month ago. We got about 17 spam messages.
Alright, cheers guys.
Alright, see you later.